Welcome back. This is Daybreak on Citizen TV. As we mentioned earlier, trying to start your week off on a positive note with some inspiration, courtesy of Weli Odendo. Good to see you, looking bright this morning. I feel like we're both very bright.
You're trying.
Right.
You're trying.
Yeah. So this morning I wanted to talk a little bit about self-talk.
How are you in the first place?
I'm all right. You know, I'm still battling that cold, but you know, I'm getting through it.
I need to know how the cold is.
No, I think we're past the.
We're past the communicable stage.
Yes.
Now we can lean in.
Yeah. So, like I said, I wanted to talk a little bit about self-talk and how it is that you can get unstuck from your story, because we all have a narrative that we carry around with us, right? And so maybe just how that impacts your life and all of that. And you know, just the reason I thought of doing this is I used to have a blog. And I used to write short stories and poetry, and it was all like relationships and heartbreak, and women loved it. I was very popular on my blog. But then one day I sat back and I read it, and I was just telling the same story over and over and over again from different angles. And so I had to ask myself, who am I without this pain? If you take that narrative away from me, I have nothing. You know, so maybe we can talk about how it is that our narrative is created. Is it a conscious thing? Is it just something that happens along the way? At what point in our lives do we create that narrative for ourselves?
I think the mind is divided into two, the conscious and the subconscious. Whenever the mind faces a challenge that it feels it's greater than itself, in a way to protect itself, it stores it in the subconscious state so that it can be able to appear as though it has moved on, but it has actually not moved on. So it is as if there is a lot of zero grazing where your mind is held captive by a pole. And as you've heard the story of the elephant that was chained by a peg when it was growing up, and it always grew to think that the peg was stronger than it. So it never challenged that peg. So it starts to domesticate itself around that peg. And that is the story of many people, whereby they find that whenever they meet events, they train themselves, because that event either triggered a threshold of pain that they don't feel competent enough to deal with it. So because they feel they're not competent enough, they repress it, or they find a way to make it less painful. And in order to make it less painful, they come up with either a narrative to tell them that I'm not the only one going through this, or they come up with a narrative that I deserved it, I don't live to do it like this. But the worst narrative is that I don't have the power over it. That's the worst, because once an individual takes power from himself and hands it over either to a relationship, to an event, to a career, to a financial status, they spend all their energy trying to make that event, that relationship, that opportunity to work, instead of realizing I was before it was. I am before it was. And as we collect people, you collect love, I collect jobs, I collect opportunities, I begin so much to forget who was I before I collected Joey along my existence. But now my existence has so much been defined that when Joey walks out, I also walk out with Joey, and I don't know how to live without Joey. So that now begins to form the basis on which we begin now to create a new self. And this self is so much controlled. It's just like the iceberg, the Titanic iceberg, the iceberg that Titanic hit. We only get to see a surface, and that's why most relationships fail, because you're dating somebody, but there is a mountain of undealt with fears beneath them that is actually controlling them. And you never see them, and then you get to discover either they're highly suspicious, or they're unable to make plans, or they're just passive thinkers. They just don't know how to raise their bar and actively solve a problem. They always wait, inshallah, yale Mungu amepanga itatendeka. You begin to hear such stories. You begin to know that you're dealing with somebody who is stuck. Yep.
Yeah, I like that. There's a line you said in there that I really like, and I hope my exes were watching. You said, I don't know how to live without Joey. And I said, well then, hi exes.
They get the message.
Yeah, I hope you get the message.
How are you living without me?
How can you live without Joey? Hashtag. But why is it that our mind keeps, we keep this blame game going? It feels like we just need to keep our minds busy sometimes. And the more you tell yourself that story of, oh, I was hurt, oh, I had a difficult childhood, it feels like just busy work that you're doing, because you're not progressing, you're not making anything out of these thoughts. Why is that?
It's conditioning. How we condition our minds when it goes through challenges, or how it anticipates those challenges, creates the threshold, what we call threshold, the pain-pleasure limit. So that conditioning makes it that whenever the pain has been surpassed, the mind shrinks itself into a manner that it feels like I have to go into survival mode, not confront mode or deal mode. I have to go into survival mode. Now, this conditioning is not something that happens in one particular event. It is absorbed behavior. You either saw your parent deal with matters that way, then you saw your elder sister deal with matters that way, then you watched a movie and you saw Angela Bassett deal with matters that way in that movie.
Yeah.
And so conditioning is the pressure to meet your previous identifier, the person you identify with the most. They define how you will condition yourself. Now, the time to reorganize, now we are not breaking the habit, now we are breaking the pattern that has been left after the habit. There's something I've been teaching people a few weeks ago. I told them that sometimes the enemy leaves, it's the wound that remains. And you are still trying to fight an enemy that left. So instead of dealing with the wound, it's like when a snake bites me and I quickly run after the snake. I am driving the poison right into my chest.
Yeah.
Instead of stopping to deal with the bite, I will be so angry at the snake, I'll go do blogs, I'll go attend anything to run after the snake, but not knowing the more I'm running after the snake, the more I'm pushing the poison faster into my bloodstream. So what kills people from snake bites? Is it the bite or the poison? It's the poison. And you have to stop the poison from getting into the bloodstream. So it has all to do with the conditioning. Who do I identify with? Who is the person who has defined for me how I should deal with love pains, how I should deal with career pains, how I should deal with woman or man pains? Who defines for me? Because that person conditions for me the threshold that I think a person should deal with matters like this. And that is now what begins to make, when that wound begins to shape your identity, it now forms what I've recently come to call inner vows. So if you're dating or you're living and now you begin to form inner vows that now begin to be the peg upon which now you zero graze. If somebody is far from the line, that person is not within your limit. You are not willing to stretch for that person. You're not willing to be present in that relationship, because now you are operating with an inner vow that came by you trying to role play, rehearse. I saw my mom deal with this like this. I was actually telling somebody, we were talking with some men over the weekend, and I told them, you know, some of you, this was from a man's side. The lady you are dealing with is fighting her mother's battles in her relationship.
Wow.
She saw her mother struggle to feed her, and she came up with an inner vow, I will never ever. So you find yourself, you've walked into something that this person has got, you're dating an activist. They're still fighting for the rights of their parents in a current status. Or she saw her sister get married and get abused and move back in with them. And now, when she saw it, it defined something in them and conditioned her to tell her, that will never happen to me. So she's ever trying to avoid a that you don't know. What is that? What is it that you're so hostile? What is it that you're so quick? Yani tu tukikosana kidogo, aiki tuachane. Unashanga, what is this all about? That tunachananga mande, tunatumerudiana. Tio, sorry, I was angry. You're dealing with an inner vow. This person is probably trying to deal or fight battles that have happened in another arena that is stored in her subconscious mind that we cannot see, and you're dealing with them as though it is a problem of the present.
Yeah.
So it's conditioning that goes and creates those inner vows.
A lot of us have a lot of negative self-talk happening in our own minds. And, you know, sometimes I get the thought that, you know, if other people said the things to me that I say about myself, I would think they're horrible people. But yet I tolerate it if it's coming from me, and I'm just like, Joga Wezi, you know? But why is it that it's okay for us to talk negatively about ourselves in our minds, but we won't accept it from a troll on Twitter? You know?
You know what happens is that, I always say this, the mind is overly glamorized. But the mind, like other parts of the body, must, the same way you bathe your body, the same way you brush your teeth, the same way, we allow the mind to be the self-ruling part of our body, and eventually it begins to find lazy spots. It's like a cat, you know. A cat never shows you love. It shows. It comes for need. They come for need. They are need animals. If you see a cat near you, it needs something. Yeah. Because if it doesn't need you, it won't want you to touch it. It won't want you to come close to it. So the mind looks for lazy spots to go and camp. Where is the most comfortable? So you'll see a cat hanging on the softest part. It knows where your kitty part imeisha. So it knows exactly how to utilize even a broken tooth. So the mind begins to look for that. And what makes us begin to enforce that negative self-talk is because we don't take the time to actually train the mind what it should think about. The same way, as we are sitting on this set, I have to make myself, I would like to see what is happening there, but I have to train myself that we have to focus this way. But we allow the mind, today if it feels happy, we call them moods. You know, my mood is today like this. And so emotions are in charge, impressions are in charge, but all these are just what I would call beautifiers of your actual identity. They are not your authentic identity. True identity is developed. So when you begin to depend on mood and you begin to depend on emotions, you begin to work with ego, because that's very fluid, it's very external in nature. So the mind needs to be trained. It must be intentionally trained to think correctly. Actually, it must be the most trained part of it. You would rather go a day without showering than have a day with a bad attitude. At your mood itaisha tu by itself. You need to train your mind. No, you're not going to think about that. You don't allow it to be like an adolescent, that it has adult emotions in a child's body. You need to, no, you're not going to think about that. No, I will not allow you to talk me down and put me down before the world puts me down. No, I know better. I've been here before. No, I'm not going to start this. You have to give it the kind of talk that you want it to replay, or else it will choose the most basic or primate, or it will just reinforce what a figure of authority said about you or the events around you, and it will just reinforce them. Oh, you're going through a hard time. You're useless. You're going to fail. You're going to die. That's what the event is saying. We ought to be working together. You ought to be working for me.
We're a team.
Now, we are a team here. How are you scoring against me? And then when I want to die, you say, oh, please don't die. Please don't die. I was joking. We ought to be working together. So you need to train it. You need to determine in yourself. And that's why the world is full of people whom life has overcome, because they are waiting for the mind to want to do. But the mind must be willed to do. It never wants to do. You have to will it. You have to will it to tell it, tomorrow I have to do it. I don't want to, but I have to will to do it. And that's how people, everybody who has built anything significant or lives a significant life, willed it. They wanted it at first, but the want kept fading away, and they were left with that inner solid core called the will that pushed them to the ultimate.
To someone watching who might not even recognize the story that they've been telling for their whole lives, how, you know, where do you begin with that person who's just watching and saying, wait, I have a story? I didn't even know.
I always tell people, create silence. Stop crowding your life with noise. Create silence. Find a way to sit down by yourself, and because when it is all silent, that's when your true self, your developed self, speaks to you. There are people who say, hey, Mrs. Ilala, the lights must be on, the music must be playing, I must have a shot of something so that I can just sleep. You know me, when I'm in pain, that's how I deal with pain. You are trying to drown the pain. You're not trying to unearth the pain and master the pain. So the pain is determining for you what you do. You know me, when you are stressed, I do. So stress is determining for you what you do. But as you're growing older, you're going to find yourself in a lot of stresses. The younger you are, somebody is dealing with your stresses. As you're becoming more older, more responsibility, more stresses are coming, more heartaches are coming, more disappointments are coming, more discouragements are coming. And so if you start listening to what stress wants and never develop the inner core of the will to determine that even when I'm stressed, nope, I'll not do that, nope, I'll not do that. So you have to create silence. In creating silence, you will actually get to have a taste of your own mind. Maybe your exes are somewhere saying, Fuchs, at least ushaka ukajisikia. We've had somebody anajami, usikia vile uongea. Unashanga, what is this guy telling me? But the truth of the matter is, ushisikia vile uongea. Because ukika ujisikie, utaona, hey, by the way, I think the way uongea, even if I was to date myself, I would dump myself. If this is me wanting to dump me. So you have to create silence. Secondly, you need to organize your health program. You need to know that health is in an environment. You cannot stay in a contaminated environment and have a healthy mind. You need to organize. And as you organize, you're going to start recognizing where are the spots where I fail the most. Maybe life is not bad. Maybe I am the bad in life. And I need to fix me instead of trying to fix everything. Oh, mom never loved me, dad never hugged me. Some of us cannot even dare to bring those excuses and tell our parents that, you know, you never hugged me. That's why I have this rotten attitude. He'll tell you, have you ever fed 6 people in your life? You're feeding yourself, you are doing a poor job. So you need to organize a health plan, and then you have to know that your will is the most innovative part of you. If you develop it well, it has everything that has been built by more willpower. People willed themselves than waiting for the will to be inspired to do.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned about trying to fix everything around you is very important. Because that's why we're never satisfied as human beings. We're always just trying to, what else? What else can I fix when it's up here, that needs to be fixed?
Fix your boss, fix your ex, fix mom. And why is the dog barking? Can you just do this? Fix everything.
Instead of looking inwards. How do you start to tell a new story? Once you've gone to that silent place, and something I was thinking about as you were talking about that, you know, I always tell myself, in order to get over something, I have to go through it. So once you've gotten to that silence, what next?
You begin to tell yourself, you begin to do an audit of yourself and see, where are my greatest strengths? When you know your strength audit, then you come up with a plan and a vision. That vision now will tell you, I have to be my best to achieve that. I cannot live for the moment. I have to live for the ultimate. That vision, coming from a place of me discovering what my strengths are, sets me on a path that makes me to be totally sold out to pay the price to achieve that vision. The good book says that where there is no vision, the people will perish. So vision begins to be the environment that self-destruction is totally eliminated. And now self-enhancement is totally activated. And so that vision, that is what will create a new narrative for you. And then I always advise people that you need to sit. When people hear people like us talk on air, they think that this 30-minute talk here is all they need. So they wake up maybe on Monday or go to church on Sunday, and they do that. But you have to know that your mind is full of bandits laying in wait, waiting for you at night to clobber you. Then tomorrow in the bus and clobber you. Then when you're eating lunch and clobber you. Then the girl he wants to date rejects you and clobber you. So the mind has got more than one opportunity to clobber you. You need a coach that you will go to hold you accountable and will go to help you structure your mind. Because I've said it needs to be trained. Every great player place because they had a great coach. You need a coach. You need to get somebody to walk beside you so that he helps you, keep you aligned. But if you hit success, we say, well, I don't need coaching now. But the higher you go in life,
the more coaching
you need, because you're going to get a lot of, now you're going to have managerial problems, more money, more problems, higher levels, greater devils. So it's always going to get worse. You need a coach to keep you in that state of mind so that they can call you back and tell you, hey, you're behaving like a child. You need somebody who can tell you what your mom can't tell you, your boyfriend can't tell you, your sisters can't tell you, your fans on Instagram can't tell you. You need somebody who tells you, hey, I think you need to grow up.
Oof.
I think you need to grow up. We cannot be talking about this. Now, we don't have a lot of that. So we get cheerleaders who cheer you off a cliff.
And like all your pictures. Sadly out of time, Willie, but I appreciate you stopping by this morning to talk to us about telling a different story, self-talk, and getting unstuck from your narrative.